the drums are calling us together as colleagues of the World Council of Churches, but also as friends and as participants in a very important event this afternoon, as we want to launch what should have been launched yesterday by our colleague Reverend Norman Tendis in the UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi. A roadmap for congregations, communities, and churches for an economy of life and ecological justice. And you will hear more about it in a while. At the beginning, I want to remind all of us about the tragic realities that he and many others, 157 people, died in a car, in an air crash in Ethiopia Sunday morning. Many of them on their way to this very important United Nations Environmental Assembly. Many of them were also, like him, very committed, very qualified, and very strongly contributing to our sustainability in this world. How to take care of God's creation, how to know how to do it, but also how to bring new ideas and new initiatives. And our dear colleague Norman was really one of those who brought new ideas, new commitment, new inspiration to his local church, but also to his church in Austria, the Lutheran church in Austria, and also as a seconded staff to the World Council of Churches, bringing this commitment, but also this inspiration and very good proposals and content to the worldwide family of churches and to the world. So we owe him, and we owe the very important commitment and work he has been involved in to actually launch this roadmap officially today here in the World Council of Churches as one of the many contributions to honor his work, but also to say it cannot stop. We have to continue. We have to share this responsibility together with, particularly with the colleagues in the team in this program of Economy of Life and Ecology of Life that we have here in the WCC, and you will also be connected with us as we move into this presentation. And now I ask my colleague Isabel to present our colleagues and to invite them to help us to see what is in this roadmap and how can we, as a World Council of Churches, but also as local churches, use this.
Just to add that this document, the roadmap for congregations on economy of life and ecological justice, is part of the pilgrimage of justice and peace. You may remember that, with the pilgrimage of justice and peace, we have four major themes. There's, peace building, there's economic justice, ecological justice, and human dignity. So we must look at this document in the context of the pilgrimage of justice and peace. And so I'll invite Athena to tell us more about what is in this document.
Thank you, Isabel.
Yes.
Greetings from Nairobi, where the 4th UN Environment Assembly is taking place. And as you all know, our brother and colleague Norman was also supposed to have been here. Norman was always challenging us as communities and as faith-based institutions to walk the talk. In summary, the roadmap is an invitation to congregations to live sustainably and with justice in our daily operations. I'm sorry if there's a bit of echo, but I'm out in the open, and I just stepped out to participate in this call. In any case, the roadmap is in 5 parts and offers concrete and practical proposals in these 5 parts. The first part is living in accordance with God and creation. The second part is renewable energy and climate protection. Hold on a second and let me see if I can improve the sound.
No, we can hear you very well, Athena. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
The third part is just and sustainable consumption. The fourth part is economies of life. And the fifth part is about networking. So I will quickly share some of the concrete proposals under the heading Economies of Life. The first proposal is to create spaces for moneyless interaction. So by this we mean meeting points in our congregations and in our churches, without the necessity to buy anything, without the necessity to pay for anything. The idea is to create spaces rest from an increasingly consumerist culture and where achievements are, more and more measured by money. The second proposal is to practice alternative economic models. And Norman was a firm believer that you can do this and start from small things. For instance, organizing or opening a free shop. And a free shop can simply be a shelf in your church or congregation where you just leave them whatever they are that you don't need. Could be books, these could be clothes, appliances, and those who need them can just pick it from the shelf. And from there we could just move on to many other things, such as a second-hand shop, a food sharing point, a repair cafe, or even a skills exchange network. And the third proposal is to practice just finance in our congregation, in our communities. And this could be practicing ethical investments or faith-based to ask where our pension funds are invested in, and to make sure that our church monies are invested in the activities that increase community and ecological well-being. And obviously to divest from those activities that are destructive of the social and ecological fabric. But we could even move on from here. We could develop Christian credit unions and even Christian banks, which there are already, which again invest in the activities that contribute to social and ecological health. So these are some of the practical examples to practice economy of life as congregations and churches. I'll end here.
Thank you very much, Athena. And now I want to invite the other staff who are part of the team that Norman belonged to. Manoj is the coordinator of that section. So I invite Manoj.
Dinesh and I will a little bit unpack what is in the first chapter. There is a living in accordance to the covenant with God and creation. There are 3 areas in it. What we eat and how we cultivate the food and where we source the food from is not only an existential issue, but it's also a spiritual and a political statement. And so, this roadmap actually guides congregations to point towards supporting and practicing small-scale and life-giving agriculture. So this is life-giving agriculture is moving away from industrial farming, etc., and promoting biodiversity and health, helping local farmers, and supporting local cultures and economies. So it is actually practically guiding us to do things that will help us being rooted to our community, so that we are not just talking about about in theory. Are there lands in surrounding our congregations? Do we have lands? Let us develop a community kitchen garden. Let us plant trees. Let us conserve water. So these are the areas in which so that we are connected with the earth related to the food that we eat, and that we do not waste the food, and we use locally sourced food, and then we start cultivating and promoting local markets.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brother Norman and I had the opportunity to test this roadmap already at the 12th Assembly of the LWF in Windhoek in Namibia, where we coordinated a workshop introducing this, and it generated a lot of discussions, and I really miss him today when this is out for launching and he's not there to celebrate with all of us. As Manoj mentioned, that one of the focus which had this nexus between food and water that was highlighted, and as World Council of Churches has become a blue community, and that is that we respect human right to water, and we believe and promote that water should be a public and common good, and that bottled water should be avoided wherever it's possible. But also we went further, because in Windhoek, even though tap water was not clean to drink, clean enough, still there were alternatives. Bottles were not distributed in this large assembly, primarily because of some of our campaigns, and therefore looking for alternatives and encouraging the local congregations, as he himself was a pastor of a local congregation in Austria, and where he had already implemented this in his own congregation. So this is the focus with regards to right to water.
Just to mention also that in his congregation they had a kitchen garden where they actually provided the space for congregants to cultivate, and also allowed the refugees to also come and cultivate. So these plots of lands were given also for the refugees, so the refugees who were not allowed to work could also cultivate. So what is being proposed here is what he practiced, and what he saw, how the refugees could be integrated into the society, and how the food could be something that unites people.
Thank you very much. Another colleague of, it's Henrik Greb, who is going to speak to us.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Warm greeting from Crete in Christ, and also
Lucas.
in the name of Norman, our brother. I'm feel very heavy, broken-hearted doing this Skype, but I think it's in his honor, and also we all have to continue this work, which is the work of our God and all of us. So I would like just to point out the third part of the roadmap, which is just and sustainable consumption. Norman was, as said by Athena, very concerned about walking talk, and we always very eager to say to change, but we do not practice. So this roadmap is one way to call people to practice the change, and especially in doing just and sustainable consumption. So there are 3 points critical in this. What is described by sustainable consumption. This is to buy ecological, fair, and regional products, which is, in another word, to practice environmental ethics and eco-theological belief. Norman was very practical in giving example. For instance, if we go to cafeterias, we have to choose fair traded coffee, tea, vegetarian food, etc. And that is to call the communities to make choice and not to value product in the monetary and structural as it is now, by just see the cheapest or buy the cheapest or the most good at our eyes and the standard of this world, but think about our neighbors as ourselves, the producers, and the nature itself, the creation of God as our neighbor itself also. The second point is to reduce waste, which is always talk in every place when we talk about environmental issues. He urged churches and all of believers to reduce plastics use, and also if to use such articles is unavoidable, we at least choose the compostable ones, which means always trying to think about the end of all these things, which is the earth itself. And the last, the third point in the sustainable consumption is to consume reused and recycling things. That is already message that is conveyed everywhere, to use recycled paper, to use recycle, sharing clothes, sharing foods with fellows. He, Norman, was very creative, and he asked also communities to be creative, like creating free shops, prepare communities, exchanging talent, helping, and money less interaction between people. Thank you. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luke. And Luke is in Crete. And thank you for your contribution. And now I call upon Henrik Grep in Sweden. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. To work with Norman, as many had said already, was to work with a person who saw local engagement in a global perspective. As being church locally is also being a part of a global community. And he practiced it. And I very much like his approach, because this is also the approach when it comes to ecological issues. They are local and they are global. And it's a fine way of ecumenically understanding how we as churches work together. Just the chapter that I would sort of point on is on renewable energy and energy consumption. To make the transition to the low carbon society that we are sort of discussing so much today, that is one of the most urgent issues to really come to terms with climate change, we need to use more renewable energy to get out from the fossil fuels in our use. And he stresses this for us as congregations to do this, to do efficient use. Energy efficiency is a huge part of actually reducing your climate impact, and also mobility, how we travel and why we travel. Can we find other lifestyles that are not so demanding of fossil fuels travels? And I think this is global, and this is something for every congregation to think of in what way they can have it and use it. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Henrik. We now invite Marcelo from Brazil.
Hello. I worked together with Norman in shaping and giving a format, an editorial format to this publication, and I would like to underline the value that he always gave to the potential network process that a simple tool like the roadmap could give. Norman used to insist that the roadmap should be in a format that could be handy and people could carry around easily, not long text, and something that could be a very good conversation starter. We worked several times in discussing the text, the format, the images that we would use. He was very interesting in using images from the mission conference, for example, and that for me was a very clear example that he saw links between what is at the core of the Christian faith and the ultimate goal for involvement in social, ethical, and social justice. The end of the publication, you find a few guidelines or suggestions, insights about how this can be a networking tool and how important it is when you want to lead by example, to share your example with the ones around you. And he truly believed that congregations are a very, very fruitful laboratory for this kind of approach.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. And now hand over to the General Secretary.
Thank you to all colleagues who have shared both your work with Norman, with us, but also this very important fruit of his work. We are a bit shaken, all of us, still. And I think that's quite okay. That's how life is when we face these kind of tragedies. But I'm still convinced that what we do now is very important. What he was committed to is what we are committed to together, but also what he did to finalize this and to make it ready to be presented and to be used. And I think that is the very, I would say, special gift he had, was to see how to do something that actually would make others do it. How to have something in your hand that you can really have in your pocket and use as a discussion starter, but also as a way to act immediately. So I think we are quite privileged to have this roadmap in our hands, both given these circumstances, but also given the significance of this work and the significance of what we're actually talking about. An economy of life, ecological justice for congregations, for communities and churches. As a fellowship of churches, we share the loss of Norman. As a fellowship, we continue our pilgrimage, and we do this, and we invite many others in our churches, in our partner organizations, those who are willing to join us. Let us do it together. And let us do it also with his good spirit. It is possible.
Thank you very much. I was one of those people that he interviewed, Norman, when he applied for a job, with the WCC. And all of us on the panel, we were attracted to his enthusiasm for his job. For him, it was a man with a mission he knew exactly what his contribution should be to the ecumenical movement, because he was already practicing those things at the congregational level. And he knew that, he has a message for the ecumenical movement, to share with. So seeing this document, I see it as, like you are on a relay race, and then this is a baton, and you are passing it on from one group to another. He's done his job. Now he's passing it on to us and asking us to take this on to other people, to other generations. So that's the spirit in which I see his contribution to the World Council of Churches.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues who are here and those who have been with us online. And Athena, we particularly also are with you these days as you represent us in Nairobi. It was not like we had planned, but I think it's very important that you are there and also that you are part of this important meeting. The World Council of Churches contributes in many ways, and you show it where you are. Thank you so much.